Yes, I will, which is a good thing. That is good. So, she's got.
And Phil Cawthorn is stormwater on the agenda. I take my head off, but I'm not contagious. Oh, God. Yeah.
It seems to have been particularly bad this year. Maybe that's every year.
My problem is I did that, then I got out, I trimmed my hedges. And I put the electric thing in there and just. Somebody, this is not going to end well.
It seems like the things that stay. Yes.
Crayon is gonna come in via Zoom.
Yep.
This is the reason he had to be in town.
Okay.
I don't plan on restricting him from being able to road. Yes. I sent him that several years ago.
Sure.
But you told me other.
No.
Yeah, we can.
Sent him.
Just be sure we need him to be verbal and visual. You can confirm that is Jason. All right.
At least the ID.
No Chucky the Clown.
Give us.
Yeah, and mother's maiden name.
Yeah. No, we don't. We don't need that.
AI now.
Exactly. Need the magic word. Sure. I think I did it. Call to order our regularly scheduled city council meeting for Monday, April the 15th, 2024 at approximately 7:05 p.m. Bear with me. I may lose my voice, which is a blessing for some people. We'll try to get through this. Let the records reflect that all council members are present except Mr. Kraling, who is going to join us via Zoom. So once he's confirmed that he's online, we'll allow him to participate fully. Also have our city administrator, our city clerk, various department heads. We appreciate y'all being here. And as always, our citizens, interested parties. So we thank you guys for being here also. First item on our agenda is our invocation and pledge of allegiance. And I believe Councilman Reynolds, that's yours.
I'll take it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. If you'll bow with me. Gracious Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the sunshine and we thank you for the rain, Father. We're just Thankful to be here this evening to do the work of the city. I pray that you'll help each one of us to be wise, that you'll help each of us to be gracious and kind. And I'm thankful for this time together with my colleagues here. That we can serve this city, and I pray that we'll do it in a way that's pleasing to you. And just pray that you'll be with each one of us as we do our daily work, as we come here in our off time, that you'll um, help us to um, help us to not forget the many important blessings that we have, the important things that we have to do. And I just pray that you'll help us all to again be wise in our decisions. I pray as we look out in the world and see the chaos and the many different things going on, that we can all find our daily grace, that we can find our solitude in Christ Jesus. And just again, thank you for your daily blessings. In your name I pray. Amen. If you'll rise with me for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor.
You, Mr. Mayor.
I believe Mr. Kraling has joined us virtually.
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Kraling, I think we need a visual confirmation as well, please. If you could just for a second, turn your camera on and then. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Sam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Grayland. Also let the records reflect that I failed to acknowledge the senior counsel, Mr. Daniel Hughes is with us this evening also. Come a long way. So we appreciate you being here and keeping us on the straight and narrow. I believe first item before us on the proclamation and presentations, we'll defer to our administrator. You want to introduce Ms. Robinson?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We had a request by a council member recently with regards to receiving some additional information from the Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation Program and what they're doing there and how their services can benefit the community. And so tonight we have with us Ms. Kirsten Robertson, who is going to deliver a presentation and tell us a little bit more about the organization, its purpose, and how it can serve the residents of Mauldin.
Take your time. Can you hear me now? Oh, wow. Okay. Good evening. My name is Kirsten Robertson, and I'm with the Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation District. I was invited here to share with you what we do for your community. Works. This gives me more time to be nervous. I'm happy just giving you a nod if you want to move it forward also.
We're seeing on our screen end webinar for all, which may be prohibiting you to do anything else until that goes away. So you probably need to hit a cancel button. Not that I'm the IT expert, because I'm not. Oh, and now you probably can advance the slides for her when she wants. There you go.
Lovely.
Ta-da!
Now we're cooking with fire.
Chair of the AI committee.
That's fine. I appreciate your inviting me here to share what we do. First, I want to give you a little bit of a background about who we are. Conservation districts work with local landowners to advise them and educate them about the ways that they can best use the natural resources on their land. We do not have any regulatory authority. We don't have any laws or ordinances. We are strictly here for education and advice. I like to say that we're the guys with the white hats on, so that we can't get you in trouble. We can keep you from getting in trouble. Conservation districts were started during the Dust Bowl or right after that. And so the Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation District was one of the first ones in the nation. And we were started in 1939. If you do your math, that shows that we've been around for 85 years serving the people of Greenville County. Every conservation district is affiliated with a county in South Carolina. So there are 46 of us in South Carolina, and there are over 3,000 in the United States. We are a division of state government. We're up under the Department of Natural Resources, and by state law, every county has to partially at least fund the Soil and Water Conservation District. So we are funded by Greenville County. We have a governing board, and that board consists of 5 commissioners. 3 of those are elected and 2 are appointed. Mike, can't use a pointer, but Mike Stewart is here with us today. He is actually a constituent of the city of Mauldin, and he is our chair. He came to support me and answer any questions that y'all may have. I really appreciate his support. Our main mission is to work with the county on the public education for the stormwater pollution, not quantity. I know y'all are having a lot of problems with that, but this is the stormwater pollution requirements that the federal government handed down in the form of NPDES MS4. It's a lot of acronyms. Basically means stormwater pollution. There are 7 different permit requirements. Public education is one of those. And so that's what the Soil and Water Conservation District does. DHEC gives us the mandate for which pollutants we are supposed to talk about. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on that. The first one is pet waste. Now that seems innocuous, doesn't it? Nature has dogs, and for every square mile, it turns out that nature can sustain 2 canines. In Greenville County, we have over 400 canines per square mile. So with that much dog waste and the stormwater, the pollution that can cause from the stormwater taking that waste into the streams, both with nutrients as well as bacteria, can cause some really serious water quality issues. So that's one of our outreaches. Another is insecticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. We like to teach people how to apply them properly and make sure we don't use too much, because that can also affect water quality. Yard waste seems like it would not be an issue. A lot of people put yard waste along the creek bank or put it in a storm drain. Those leaves and branches and twigs can exacerbate flooding, as well as the nutrients in that can cause the dissolved oxygen level in lakes to decrease, and it can cause fish kills. So EPA has warranted that we need to talk about yard waste as well. And the last one is used automotive fluids. Did you know that EPA sees every drop of oil that drips out of your car onto your driveway as a spill? And they have determined that over 180 million gallons of used automotive fluids are spilled on the ground every year. And that is more than the Exxon Valdez spill. So can become a really large problem. And all of these have to do with citizens and what we do in our everyday lives that can affect water quality. So how do we do this? We have programs for all citizens. We have K through 12 programs. Today, I spent the entire day at Mauldin Middle School. We are teaching the 6th graders about stormwater pollution. We did one class today, or one set. We did four periods. We're doing another 4 tomorrow and then another 4 the next day. So we will have done all of Mauldin Middle School's 6th grade. We do summer camps. We do after-school programs. The district has a mini grant program. So if you are an educator or know an educator who has a small environmental project that they might need some help with financially, they can fill out a form, very easy, quick, and petition the district for that. We love to do community event booths. We love to table at any, and I've talked to Mr. Duncan some about some of your festivals coming up that we would love to help you with. HOA presentations. If anyone would like us to bring a presentation to HOA, we can customize it according to the audience, where you are, and what pollutant you would like covered. We have a lot of people who want dog waste covered. It's a touch point. We do workshops. We do farmer workshops. We recently did a rain barrel workshop out at Lake Conisty along with Rewa, and where people came and made a rain barrel and they were able to take it home. We started the seed library in conjunction with the Greenville Library System, and this is our vector for getting insecticide, herbicide, and fertilizer information out to the public. So we package the seeds, we have information about those things, we do workshops, and that's kind of how we get people to be interested in learning about that. We have a storm drain art program where storm drains, a lot of people don't know that they are not treated, that the water that goes in there is not treated. Those pipes go straight to the nearest stream. And so this beautiful artwork highlights the fact that you need to be careful what you put in your storm drain. Don't wash your paintbrush over it. Don't put your dog waste in it. We do have, there is no poop fairy signs. These are free to the public. We have 2 different sizes, a 12-inch and a 23-inch. And this is just a friendly way to say that there is no magic fairy that's going to run along behind you and pick up your dog's waste. Be a responsible pet owner and pick up your dog's waste. We have a cost share program for those dog waste stations that you see up there. So if you're an HOA or an apartment complex, you can work with us and get those stations for half price. Finally, another service that we give to the community is technical assistance. I'm also a professional engineer, and I will come out to your residence if you have drainage, erosion, sinkholes, creekside erosion, flooding. I know y'all have a lot of flooding. I can't do full neighborhood wide, but if it's a single house and there's something you can do about it, I can give technical advice on that. I am leaving my cards here, and so Mr. Duncan will have those if anybody wants those to take to call me up. As a matter of fact, I looked up, and 2 weeks ago, I responded to a citizen on Sugarland Court, which happens to be in the city of Mauldin as well. So we are presently, and we plan to continue in the future serving your citizens. Are there any questions?
I'd just like to say, I appreciate you coming out and giving the presentation. I think it's important for us, particularly as we work toward talking more about stormwater and soil conditions and that sort of thing, that it's important to know that we have a resource here that we can tap into from time to time to get their expertise. So I appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you.
Next item is a proclamation we have. I'll read it from here. Proclamation for National Day of Prayer. Whereas America needs a moral rebirth and nearly every problem facing our nation today springs from a moral base. And whereas we need to implore God's blessings on our country, and whereas we need to ask God to forgive our sinfulness and restore our moral perspective. And whereas we ask that our citizens be reminded of 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called on by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now, therefore, I, Terry Merritt, Mayor of the City of Mauldin, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 as National Day of Prayer in the City of Mauldin, and urge our citizens to join the millions of other Americans across the nation in praying for a moral rebirth in America. Next item before us is the reading and approval of minutes of our council meetings and budget meetings. First item, the city council meeting of March the 18th. I believe all this is in your binder and packet, so pleasure of council. Mr. Matt.
Quick question for City Attorney, Mayor. Daniel, can we move to approve all of these at one time, or do we need to go through item by item?
I think it's acceptable. It's on the agenda as all listed out on what meetings you're approving. And I think a proper motion would be to state specifically which meetings of which minutes you're asking the council to approve.
Mayor, move we approve the minutes from the March 18th meeting, the budget workshop on March 14th, the budget workshop on March 28th, and the special call meeting on April 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Ms. King. Discussion, questions, clarifications? I have one. I believe on Robert's Rule of Orders, you can actually vote to accept minutes that have been presented to you in printed form, even though you might not have been present at that meeting.
That is correct.
Okay, because that was my note, because I was not at the March 14th council budget workshop, but I can vote to approve or deny the minutes.
It's counterintuitive, but it's true. It's correct.
It's legal. Counterintuitive. All right, we have a motion before us and no other clarifications, questions. All those in favor of accepting the motion of the four different meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the minutes are accepted as submitted. Next item before us is public comment. We have two people signed up. One is on an issue on our agenda, so that would be covered under the first public comment period. I think he has spoke before, along with the second person. I believe she is very familiar with public comment, having been up here before us before. So I don't think I need to read everything that pertains to the minutes. If you get out of order, I will interrupt you and remind you, kind of thing. So first before us, Mr. Cothran.
Good evening. My name's Phil Cochran. I live at 435 Bishop Drive. Son used to work for the fair city of Mauldin. He's moved on to another jurisdiction. You guys know my favorite subject is stormwater, because me and my family are seriously affected by it, as well as probably 4 or 5 other houses in the immediate area next to us. I do want to commend your Public Works Department. They have come into the neighborhood and done some ditching, for which we are very grateful. I want to speak specifically to the item on page 2, which was a discussion of a stormwater fee. I think we all understand that no one can do anything without money. And as much as we hate to see any kind of tax or fee levied, if we're going to do anything positive, we have to have an income stream to support it. My only concerns is that if the city does decide to levy a fee or a tax or whatever you want to call it for stormwater, that it be restricted to fix the problems that currently exist in the city, specifically in the older neighborhoods that have suffered. I've been in my house 28 years. We flooded for 28 years. I don't know if you can imagine what that's like. Waking up at 2 a.m. in the morning after a good healthy rain and getting out the wet dry vac and sucking water for as much as 12 hours. I've done that. Then get a shower and go to your state government job because you're needed there as well. So I'd love to see that go into effect, but I'd also like to see those funds restricted for the areas of greatest need. I really wouldn't want to see a fancy developer come in and say, hey, yeah, we can tap that stormwater fee fund to help me develop this new development here because it's going to generate thousands of dollars for the city. That really would be a misapplication of it. So I'm just encouraging you, if you do that, make sure that it pays dividends in the areas where people, where constituents, where residents have suffered the most. So that's my pitch. Thank you for what you've already done. And I look forward to what else you can do. And I'm glad that Mr. Kraling is making stormwater a priority. And I will continue to come back to city council meetings month after month after month to remind you that we're here and we hurt every time it rains. And we hope one day to have a answer that solves the issues. And I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Cothran, anyone have any questions? Mr. Cothran? All right. Nope. Thank you, sir. Report from our city administrator, Mr. Duncan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. So I've got a few items tonight. Just want to kind of go through. We've got some great news coming up and some really exciting opportunities for the community to come out and engage in some great things in Mauldin. But first, I wanted to talk about the Greenville County Capital Project Sales Tax Commission. They held their first meeting recently. This is the commission that's going to be looking at putting a referendum on the ballot in November. And so they met to learn more about their roles and identifying and assessing road projects and what it would take to put forward a ballot initiative this November. The commission will review scored projects from a tentative project list next Tuesday on April 23rd at 5:30 p.m. The meeting will be held at County Square and is open to the public. Once the road project list is presented, county officials will begin hosting a series of public meetings to receive feedback from the public regarding those projects. One of those meetings will be held here in Mauldin on Tuesday, April 30th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Senior Center. This will be a drop-in style event to receive comments from the public on the proposed projects. The commission will use this feedback to submit a final list and ballot language to County Council by no later than May 31st. County Council will then need to pass an ordinance in order for that ballot initiative to be presented to voters in November at the November election. And so we will continue to make information available to the community and to council as it becomes available, and just wanted to make everyone aware of that that commission's work that just begun. The next thing I wanted to mention was a few updates from the Mauldin Chamber. So the chamber will be hosting a number of events over the next few weeks throughout the community. First, on Wednesday, April 17th, they will be hosting a Get Acquainted with the Chamber open house and drop-in event. The casual drop-in will allow members and prospective members to stop by and get to know the chamber a little bit better. The event will start at 8 a.m. and end at 10 a.m. And then next, the chamber will host their annual golf classic at Holly Tree Country Club. Team spots are full, but the chamber is excited that it was able to offer 2 spots to Mauldin Fire and Police, and are pleased that they will be joining them in on the fun. The Mauldin Sports Center will be a featured hole sponsor this year, which we're excited about. Lastly, on June 15th, the chamber will host a car show at Bridgeway Station from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. A large crowd is expected. Feel free to contact Kim Guthrie at the chamber for more information about that amazing car show. But speaking of Bridgeway, their grand opening is scheduled for next Saturday, April 27th, starting at 4 p.m. The public is invited to join in the celebration and Bridgeway as Bridgeway officially opens its doors with live music, food, fun for the whole family, and then a fireworks display after sunset. There'll be games and all kinds of great activities. So bring out the family and enjoy an evening at Bridgeway. And of course, speaking of grand openings, there's none more grander than what we're excited about later this week, which is we will be opening our new fire station headquarters this Friday, starting at 11 a.m. The entire community is invited to join us as we uncouple the hose for our newest station. Following remarks by local and state officials, we'll be offering tours throughout the station and talking more with the community about what this station means to the city and beyond. We're looking forward to welcoming folks to the station and having this beautiful new wonderful station in our operation. And last but not least, if you're looking for something to do on Saturday, come on down to the Cultural Center as we will be hosting our annual Mauldin Blues and Jazz Festival. The fun kicks off at 2 p.m. and will run until 9 p.m. Music treats will include John Namath, Mac Arnold, Greenville Jazz Collective, and Kylie Odetta. There'll be plenty of great food, drinks, and fun. So bring out the family and have a great time in Mauldin. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the administrator? Seeing none. Next item on our agenda is reports from our standing committee, Finance and Policy. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to share tonight. Just mark your calendar and clear your night for this Thursday is our third council budget workshop. These are open to the public, and while there's not the public comment period, it certainly gives the public an opportunity to see your representatives at work trying to do the grind of one of the most important duties that we have, which is preparing a budget for the next fiscal year. So this Thursday, 6 o'clock, third and presumably final council budget workshop. And that's all I have to announce, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds. Public Safety, Ms. King.
All is well, nothing to report, Mayor. Thank you.
Public Works, Mr. Crayley.
Nothing to report from up here in Yankee Land.
Thank you, sir. Economic Planning and Development, Mr. Oh, okay. All is good. Move on. All right. Rocking and rolling. Building codes, Mr. Steenback.
Pretty much what's going on in there, we'll be talking about tonight.
Thank you, sir. And Recreation, Mr. Allgood.
Thank you, Mayor. It is baseball season, so we've got youth baseball kicking up. And aside from that, nothing else to report.
Thank you, sir.
And flag football too. That's right.
All right, next items on our agenda are unfinished business ordinances, second reading. Ms. Miller.
First ordinance for second reading is an amendment to section 56.16 of the Mauldin zoning ordinance regarding drive-through facilities in the central redevelopment district.
Thank you, ma'am. I believe that's coming from Business Development Services, Mr. Steenback.
So, thank you, Mayor. I would like to make a motion to amend to the section 56.16 of the Mauldin zoning ordinance regarding drive-through facilities in the central redevelopment district, allowing the one-time exception for Summer Moon Coffee.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. King. Any discussion? Ms. King?
Just please note it's second reading of the ordinance.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else? Hear none, all those in favor of the motion to accept all those acronyms that we mentioned earlier, and the motion from Mr. Steenbeck, second from Ms. King, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion is 6-0 with Mr. Matney not available to vote. All right. Miller, next item.
Next ordinance for second reading is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Andrew and Alexandria Smith and located at 325 Bridges Road by 100% petition method and to establish a zoning classification of R15 residential.
Okay, this is 325 building codes, Mr. Steenbeck.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I would like to motion that we annex the property owned by Andrew and Alexander Smith at the location of 325 Bridges Road by 100% petition method and establish a zoning classification of R15 residential for the property.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Allgood. Any discussion? Hear none, all those in favor of the motion to annex by the 100% method, 325 Bridges Road, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hear none, the motion carries 6-0. Okay. Bill, back to you.
The last ordinance for second reading is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Jason and Tina Styron and located at 315 Bridges Road by 100% petition method and to establish a zoning classification of R15 residential.
Back to you.
Thank you again, Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we annex the property owned by Jason and Tina Styron and located at 315 Bridges Road by 100% method, establish a zoning classification of R15 for said.
And if you'll go ahead and note this is second reading for me.
Yes, sir. Second read.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Allgood. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to 100% method annex 315 Bridges Road with the requested zone in R15, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries 6-0. Okay, the next item is a standing committee item coming from Public Works. Mr. Clayton, you want to introduce that or?
Yeah, yes. The goal, and if, I don't know if Mr. Fleeman is there or if our administrator would like to discuss this in detail, but the idea today is to just discuss options for funding our stormwater. I'm not asking for a motion today, but just to listen, ask questions, and then possibly discuss it on Thursday in more detail when we are discussing our budgetary workshop.
All
So
right,
that,
go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Duncan, could you kind of discuss and explain where we stand?
Sure, yes, sir. So essentially what council's been looking at over the last or foreseeable time period now is what to do about a stormwater, how to how much of a program or department to stand up, what activities it should undertake, what future projects that would incur. The city has recently committed itself to doing more in the public right of way, with more ditch digging, more culvert replacements and things like that, but has been operating with a very meager budget of about $35,000 a year. So after the analysis that KCI conducted, they presented several recommendations, I believe five, and then they had one that they thought was the ideal, which would include a structured residential and non-residential fee for developed and undeveloped properties. Mr. Fleeman, who had prepared previously a what it would take type scenario to stand up a new department and the funding that would be required in order to fund that department, but also for capital expenditures of about $295,000 a year, looked at a projected revenue and a budget of about $1 million and calculated a fee schedule based on that. In the packet on page 38 there, I also did recommend what a fee or what a projected revenue would look like if we did a flat rate option, which would be a $25 per parcel on residential and non-residential. And so projected that out, the expenses that would be incurred, and then the potential balance for capital and for grants. Also included in the agenda summary there was also the implications of the highest option for non-residential, which would be the amount of stormwater fee would be assessed against commercial and industrial properties to see kind of where they are now, where the highest fee structure out of the various proposals could be, and then the total fee that could be assessed to properties owners. And then there at the bottom was an alternative idea that I included as well, which is we are looking at several different revenue enhancements for FY25 to pay for public safety and sanitation investments that we are looking to do. We did identify that there would be some remainder revenue for additional reinvestment into the various areas of the budget. Well, we could take a portion of that revenue and dedicate it to stormwater and essentially doubling, if not tripling, the amount of contribution, amount of money we are putting into infrastructure improvements, materials in the stormwater program, but not change the fundamental design of the stormwater program. Really just putting more money into materials and not necessarily equipment, but materials in order for us to maintain public right-of-ways to a greater degree than we are currently doing. And so those were the options presented in the summary there.
So if I paraphrase what I heard from Mr. Crayland, he would like this to be a discussion item among us, providing feedback for him and potentially back to his committee for a solution forward, or us to discuss if there is an alternative approach that is not a fee generated, which several of us have our own feelings about a fee and a tax, and it's the same thing. It still comes out of my pocket. So I don't care what you call it. So with that being said, I'm gonna hush and y'all talk about it. We're elected leaders. Step up there. Mr. Allgood.
All right, thank you. Everyone keeps looking around to me. And it's only because Jason's not here in the physical building. Otherwise, you'd all be looking at Jason, I'm sure. I think it's a great idea that we do look at alternative funding. Mr. Duncan, in the what you have written here, it says 35K to 70K. Is there any chance that could be higher than 70K?
It could, yes, sir. We were looking at possibly having around 175 to 190 based on the investments we were looking to make for next year with either of the options that we were looking at. So I think that could easily be revised up to 100,000 instead of that 70,000. Just as we get closer or deeper into the budget cycle, we find that there's things that either revenues that are coming in over, under, expenses that are over, under. So there's some tweaking. So I wouldn't want to take all of that potential investable dollars and throw it in that one pot. But I feel comfortable we could dedicate an additional $100,000 next year in this for stormwater activities in the budget.
Great. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we have a conversation about is if we're going to look at whether we're instituting a fee or we're instituting additional money toward stormwater, obviously the biggest thing was we're going to be creating a stormwater division, right? So that's significant if we were to create a stormwater division. So the question is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And what will that division actually solve? And what can we do without the division? And some of the things that I would like to see us continue as a council to discuss are things that we could implement today. We had the presentation earlier by Ms. Robertson, who was talking about all the different things that Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation provide. And one of the things that she ended on was the technical assistance. And I think that is underutilized. And it's something that we as a city should look at, how we might be able to provide some technical assistance. And the definition of technical assistance is understanding that knowledge gap. It does not mean that we're going onto private property and fixing things. Not what it means. What it does mean is it shows the property owner tangible things that they can do and educating them on what those things are. And obviously we have a great public works director who has an engineering background. Kirsten also mentioned that she has an engineering background. So I think those are things that we need to figure out how we can tap into. How can we provide that technical guidance? How can we provide better public education, better outreach? How can we look at providing perhaps some stormwater grants that could go to citizens and to businesses for implementing sustainable practices to help with stormwater? I think that's another thing that we can do. When we look at particularly some of our older neighborhoods and what they're experiencing now, and I know Matthew came up and he spoke when he was presenting to the committee before about how those neighborhoods were set up 20, 30 years ago versus what we have today. And it's really staggering what it is, those numbers in terms of the drainages and how everything is set up. So the question becomes, what has changed over the last 20 or 30 years for those properties? Or were they always having flood issues from day one? I think if we actually were to look at it, it probably did not. I mean, my home was built in about 1975. I can't imagine that it's had flood issues the entire time. So what leads to it? And a lot of it has to do with what's going on with cutting down trees, right? And so how can we promote more tree plantage? How can we promote more sustainable development? So looking at things such as adopting better construction runoff guidelines, this gets out beyond creating a division. And I hope that's what you're seeing that I'm talking about, is that it's not necessarily that we have to create a division in order to take care of this. I do think that in probably about 5 or 6 years' time, as we've mentioned in our meetings, we're probably looking at a town of about 40,000 by 2030. So if we're going to have this amount of growth that's going to happen, and I'm not anti-growth by any means, but if we are going to have this growth, what can we do to create a more sustainable Mauldin? And so I think that's where we need to look at how can we have a more collaborative approach with folks like the Greenville County Soil and Water Conservation and others in the area. I know that we talk about stormwater. How could we have a collective approach with our neighboring cities in Fountain Inn and Simpsonville, who I'm sure are watching us right now, trying to figure out what are we doing about stormwater? They would be interested in knowing what we're going to do about stormwater too. Maybe it's not necessarily a city thing. Maybe it is a collaborative effort that we have with other partners. So the big thing that I just want to make sure, and then I'm gonna shut up because I've talked long enough, is that when we have a conversation about stormwater, that we're not having a conversation, and I'm going to pick on Phil. We're not having a conversation about Phil. We're having a conversation about the overarching needs of our city, the health and viability of our city. So let's not have a conversation about getting on private property. Let's not have a conversation about um, it's one person's issue. If you attended any of those meetings that we had regarding stormwater, we had a packed room both nights here, a packed room. And I think it's just one of those things where if we have good open conversations about it and figure out different ways that we could tackle it, I think there's a number of different ways we can tackle it. And so I'm thrilled that we're probably heading down the road of allocating more money toward it. I think the next step in addition to that is putting our thinking caps on and trying to figure out additional ways that we can support it until we're ready for that stormwater division. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. While you're thinking, I'll step up as I usually do. Because it was 9 years ago that I stood at the end of your driveway for over 45 minutes and we talked about it. And at that time, I was trying to get elected and I said, sure, we can solve that problem. Here 9 years later, and I think your living room still floods occasionally. So you're right, though. We just use that as an example. And we did fund a study that went out and identified the 4 critical areas that we saw that was part of the issue. We had a group that met 5 years ago and spent some time learning about stormwater retention. The city of Mauldin, and David probably has more information on this, has one of the most stringent development agreements. Our retention is like 100 to handle a 100-year flood versus Greenville County's 30-year flood and our neighbor cities. When I initiated discussion with our neighboring cities 7 or 8 years ago, they did not have a stormwater issue, so they were not interested. We invited Greenville, who we were sending approximately $800,000 a year on a stormwater fee to Greenville. We invited them here to help our group understand. 3 different times she was supposed to have been here. 3 different times she didn't show up. And that's not Kristen. This was someone else, okay? So it wasn't her. But we couldn't get information. We talked to 3 or 4 different attorneys, and they were all together on one thing: don't touch it. You can't print enough money to fix it, because if you say stormwater, everyone will have a different opinion of what that means. Some think it means flood water, others stormwater. David developed some charts for me. I still have in my office. And this is the one thing that not a one of us up here can change. Water flows downhill. Mauldin sits geographically between 2 major drain basins, and we start at a higher level and water comes downhill. We're kind of sitting in the middle here, but it keeps going downhill till it joins the other 2 streams down there. So anytime you see a new development going in north of us, uphill of us, their water ultimately will come here, and how we handle it. And that's the drum that I beat for years and years, that we wasn't doing basic block and tackling. We wasn't cleaning out ditches. Ditches disappeared because the silt filled them in and they developed 4 feet further in somebody's yard. Now suddenly it's outside the right of way, so we can't touch it. If we'd have been cleaning the ditch out where it was, it would have never went 4 feet further in somebody's yard. That wasn't City of Mauldin's problem to begin with, because it was state law that changed, that we couldn't do things anymore on private property and things like that. There's no doubt in my mind, I've been here all my life. We had some great talent on our city staff. We did things that were morally the correct thing to do, but then it became legally we couldn't do it. So we didn't have enough lights to do it at night under cover of darkness. So we didn't do it. So now here we are, and having a discussion with new ideas is great. And if everybody will talk about it, that's good. But acts of God, we cannot change. We can direct the water and try to minimize it. But as much as I'd like to see Seth print money every night for us, we cannot print enough money to solve this issue. Hopefully we can mitigate it somewhat. But it's kind of like that old saying that all of us, all of us out here are mature. Have heard the old joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Stormwater is the elephant in the room. We're going to do things one bite at a time. Part of that is that education process. Thank the good Lord, you're starting at the middle school and teaching them and moving forward. I wish I had known the title, the poop fairy, because in my neighborhood, I have a couple of citizens. I have to remind them that, I have to get my mail at my mailbox and I have to step right there. So next time would Fido, would you mind just bringing your poop fairy along with you? Take it with you, dispose of it, put it in your city trash can if you got to get rid of it. So anyway, that's my thing. 9 years later, I am still a stormwater advocate, but I don't have a magic button. I don't have, I'm not a bona fide certified engineer. I'm just, as you heard the other day, I'm just an old country boy that used to have to clean out his own ditches. And I bought a house in Mauldin. It's on top of a big hill. I don't have a stormwater issue. That doesn't mean I don't sympathize with a neighbor 100 yards down the hill who sits right next to the creek. So with that, anyone else would like to make a dissertation? Steinbeck.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Craven.
Yes. So, and I apologize. Unfortunately, up here, they're about 6 weeks behind us weather-wise. So the pollen here is horrible, and I apologize about my voice. I just like to say that, when we look at stormwater, you're right, absolutely correct. And when you say we can't wave a magic wand, and I totally agree with your point about how do you eat the elephant one bite at a time. One of the reasons I'm actually up here and some of the things I'm working on with the company I work for is about making improvements. And the goal is always to be better tomorrow than we are today. And so when we're going through and we're all looking at this, how do we handle this? It's going to get worse. We're going to have more water. There's construction going up above Mauldin. The water will flow downhill. We will be getting probably more of it. So we need to start addressing these issues now because it's not going to get any better. So there's multiple options here in front of us, some different ideas. If there's something you maybe think outside the box, I have some ideas. Again, I think it's probably best to maybe discuss during the budget meeting on Thursday, where we can go have the back and forth. But burying our heads in the sand on this issue is not going to get anything resolved. And I'm also reminded here too that we've seen a lot of, there was a KCI who did the analysis and gave some ideas on how to resolve some of the stormwater issues, and like in Bishop Heights, with some very big price tags to it. And today I was reminded during some training of how engineers sometimes think, and being one I can criticize. There's a photo of all these cars in traffic. There's a red car in the middle of this traffic, and it's saying it's stuck, and it says, "What's the problem here?" And an engineer would say it doesn't have a supercharger. At the end of the day, it still can't move. We over-engineer, and sometimes there's other things we can do to make things better. And thinking about that, what can we do today to make it better for tomorrow? Maybe it's not perfect, but still make those improvements. So, and everybody, when you go home tonight and you're thinking through this, you've seen some of these options here. Think these through so we can discuss these things, because it's not getting any better, and we're just looking to make movement in the right direction. And that's kind of what I have to say on the matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Craven. Back to you, Mr. Steinbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Pointing out the obvious that I am the new guy, not playing the new guy card. Um, no, I'm not. I've spent, I don't have the same context or as far as the time and all the discussions that you all have had, but I've done my best to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, um, the terminology used, blocking and tackling, as a youth football coach, that to me that rings true in terms of, I feel like that's the thing that it seems like the city has missed in the past. Is it feels like maybe a stormwater division is trying to run West Coast spread style offense, and we haven't taught our linemen how to block yet. We haven't done the basics yet to be able to get to that. And so we don't know at this point, objectively, I feel like, what we need, because we haven't done the things that we should have been doing all along. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just stating what I've seen, what I've heard from you all, what I see, what I've talked, as I've talked to different staff members. And I think if at this point, if we're not taking care of those things first, whatever decisions we make aren't going to be the right ones, because we haven't done the basics right first. If we don't get that right, it doesn't matter what we decide to do. It's not going to be the right. I think, to your point, from a sustainability standpoint, to Jason's point, with the long term in view, I think that's what we've got to start with. And I'm glad to hear we've started that, but I think there's a lot more work to be done there first that I would like to see happen.
Thank you, sir. You do.
Thank you, Mayor. Not so much a dissertation, but just a couple of comments. We've talked about sayings and cliches, and there's another saying, if you're too big to do the little things, you're too little to do the big things. And to Mr. Steenback's point, there are a lot of little things that we haven't done that we have started to do. And those little things are making a difference. I want to make sure that we do not allow incrementalism to become an enemy, because incrementalism is still forward motion. And we are not where we want to be. We're not where we need to be, but we're not where we were. And I think that as long as we don't lose sight of what our ultimate goal is in mitigating our stormwater problems as much as humanly possible, and we keep our efforts top of mind, that we will continue seeing those successes, and that those successes will continue making a difference in our residents' lives.
Mr. Steenbeck.
One other thing I would like to go on the record, that I live in one of the neighborhoods at the bottom of one of those basins, and I live in the bottom of that neighborhood. So I'm well aware of and can sympathize very well with having to pump out water, or in my case, placing sandbags in the hailstorm with a football helmet on so we don't get a concussion. So I can appreciate the issue. I understand what it's like. So I speak from experience from that standpoint.
Thank you, sir. I believe that was the discussion that Mr. Crichton was wanting. I know we will come back together on our budget meeting Thursday night, and I understand there would be a section in there that's queued up for us to discuss, and as it relates to stormwater and public works and funding and that type of thing. So, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question.
I'm sorry, I've lost volume.
You didn't lose it. I didn't have it on. Sorry about that. It's been found. Mr. Duncan, what do we estimate our millage amount to be this year?
When you say that, sir, do you mean the value of a particular mill?
Yes.
159,000 is what we use for budgeting purposes.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Duncan. And real quickly, Mr. Mayor, I've spoken a lot about this, I think, in the committee level, and won't add a lot. And I'm not going to repeat the same stuff over and over for everyone's edification and saving of time. But certainly, I think this council has done a really good job of committing the the most valuable thing we've had, and that's a lot of money. We've taken advantage of some federal opportunities that came down our pipe, unintended, and that's something some of our sister cities maybe haven't done. So I want to make sure as we think through this that we're also recognizing that the city's made a healthy commitment. And I think looking at our budget and trying to increase that amount uh, is not unwise either. But there's been a lot of effort already, and I think continued thought and continued conversation is important. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
It was not an action motion, but just a discussion. So if council is okay, we'll just leave that as a discussion item. Staff will take back our discussion and formulate a plan. We'll hear more about it Thursday night, I hope.
Yes, and thank you, everyone, for your comments.
All right. Still with us, Ms. Miller? There you are. New business, first reading ordinances. You would?
First ordinance for first reading is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of property owned by Clayton Bond Jr. and located at 2 Woodhedge Court by 100% petition method and to establish a zoning classification of R15 residential.
All right, I think that's also building development. You're on a roll, Mr. Steenbeck.
I told you we'd be talking about it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we annex the property owned by Clayton Bond Jr. located at 2 Woodhedge Court by 100% method and establish zoning classification R15. I would like to point out this also closes, sorry, motion. Yep. First reading, yes, as a first reading. And this closes a donut hole for us.
Good. Thank you, sir. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Reynolds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to annex 2 Woodhedge Court by the 100% ownership method with a requested zoning of R15 on first reading, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Probably made a note that Mr. Matney did rejoin us during the stormwater discussion. So note that in the minutes. Motion carries. Next item, Ms. Miller.
The next ordinance for first reading is an amendment to the Mauldin zoning ordinance, removing certain uses from those allowed in the S1 and I1 zoning districts.
All right, back to you, Mr. Steenbeck.
Appreciate all the opportunities to practice. On first read, would like to make a motion to amend Mauldin zoning ordinance, removing certain uses from those allowed in S1 and I1 zoning districts. It's on the first reading and helps us bring into control some of those what's allowed in those zoning and to give a little more control for the city.
Okay. Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. Any discussion? Mr. Good.
Thank you. This may be a question for you, Mr. Duncan or Mr. DeHog. And I'm going to ask basically the same question on the next one as well. With zoning classifications and then looking at, I'm not going to look ahead. I shouldn't do that. The next one. But as zoning classifications, is there any grandfathering in that goes in with these?
So I'm going to have Mr. Deerhog explain that specifically, just so you get the right answer the first time. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. David Deerhog, Business Development Services Director. And yes, so any of the institutional uses that we have already formally allowed in the S1 and I1 districts are grandfathered in. They can continue to operate. In fact, they can sell, transfer ownership, that kind of stuff, and keep on strolling merrily along.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Anyone else? Okay. Then the motion before us is to accept the council's staff recommendation to amend the institutional uses in S1 and I1 districts according to your packet. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries on first reading. Miller.
The next ordinance for first reading is an amendment to the Mauldin zoning ordinance establishing regulation for non-conforming uses, structures, sites, lots, and signs.
Let's see, that is going to Mr. Steinbeck.
Surprise. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion that we amend the Mauldin zoning ordinance establishing regulations for non-conforming uses, structures, sites, lots, and signs as has been presented here.
I have a motion from Mr. Steinbeck. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Madney. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Steinbeck.
Yeah, I would just like to point out and thank city staff for taking this on. This is one of those things where it was, this particular ordinance was pretty unwieldy and difficult to understand. And from when they got the feedback about that, they were quick to act and respond to this. And just wanted to say thank you, especially Mr. Deerhog and y'all staff for doing that for our citizens, especially with what's coming up Butler Road here.
Thank you, Mr. Steinbeck. Only comment that I would have is it's like our zoning ordinances, just like the other things we've heard here tonight, are not static. Our city is not static. We're growing. And the one thing we will not be doing is generating new soil. We hadn't figured out how to do that. Okay. So we're growing and the needs change, and the protection of our citizens and our businesses need to be paramount and before us, but they are growing and also in changing in the way they operate. So I also salute David and his department and their constant idea to bring this discussion up with staff to get feedback from all the various departments that provide services and what they're hearing and what they're running into. So it is a living, breathing document that will not be static. And I'll also note there is not one of us up here that's perfect. We will make a mistake occasionally. Your predecessor, I used to find his commas and his semicolons in the wrong place. It gave me great joy to tell an attorney that he was wrong. But Daniel's been doing a great job, and I hadn't had that luxury here the last few weeks, so I appreciate that. But the point is, we will make a mistake, overlook something, or misinterpret something, but we're willing to come back and fix it. That's what we're doing here tonight as we're growing more about that. Hopefully that made sense, but anyway, that's my comment. Any others? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to accept the proposed amendments for our zoning ordinance. Is there anything else I'm supposed to note? You got it down. She's got it down. Okay. So I won't butcher it any more than I already have for non-conforming use structure sites. Blah, blah, blah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries on first reading. Okay. Next item, Mr.
The final ordinance for first reading is an ordinance to sell Butler Road property for right-of-way.
Let's see. Hey, take a rest. That's Mr. Crayland. Would you like to enter?
Yes, at this time I'd like to make a motion for the city to approve the sale of certain property on East Butler Road to the South Carolina Department of Transportation for the purpose of the road improvements as part of the build a better Butler road improvement project, and are authorized additional temporary construction easements for the project. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for Mr. Allgood. Any discussion? Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to comment real quickly on the fiscal impact, we expect to be about $51,112. Staff has recommended dedicating those funds to cost to cure the activities as described by the appraisal on I would agree with staff's recommendation there. I don't know if necessarily needs to amend the motion.
Correct. So noted. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve the sale of certain properties on East Butler Road, South Carolina DOT for the purpose of road improvements on part of South Carolina DOT's project called Building a Better Butler, and to authorize additional temporary construction easements for the project, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, next, standing committee item none, committee of the whole item none.
Mayor, there are two ordinances on the conveyances to DOT, isn't that correct? We have two tracks.
Yes.
It was two tracks in a single ordinance. We wrote it. Both of them.
They need to be separate. 'Cause
In the packet, I see an ordinance for track 205 and then a track for 229. I thought it was going to be two separate ordinances. And there's an ordinance.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir. On page 84 is the second ordinance. So the first one was for track 205. The second ordinance is for 229, track 229. So we do need that second one.
Okay, so the vote we just took, would we note that was for track 205?
Yes, sir.
Consider the other one now.
That's correct.
Okay.
Clarify that in the agenda next time to make it a little bit easier.
So I'll make this track 205. And Mr. Crayland, if you would make whatever.
Okay. Yes, and then I'd like to make a motion to approve the sale of track 229 along East Butler Road to South Carolina DOT for the purpose of the road improvement on Butler Road.
We have a motion for track 229 for the same thing we did for 205. So noted. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Stinkback. All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the sale of certain property concerning track 229 to SCDOT for the purpose of building a better Butler and additional temporary construction easements. Say aye.
Aye.
Those like sign? Hearing none, the motion carries. This might pain me, but good catch, Mr. Attorney. All right. Now, we are back to our public comment. I believe Ms. Jordan, you know the routine, but just for the sake of everyone else, step to the podium, state your name and your address.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Cindy Jordan. I live at 204 Fowler Circle. While I'm kind of in the heart of Mauldin, I'm actually a Greenville County resident, which pains me, but that's for another day. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My first item, I told Cindy I had three things I wanted to speak about. And if you will allow me, there's actually a fourth I would like to mention, given the discussion here tonight on the stormwater. Anyway, first off is huge thank you to the Mauldin Police Department. They've always been near and dear to my heart. For those of you who knew me when I was sitting in seat number 5, emergency services, any of those things were part of my previous life before moving to South Carolina. So anything to do with emergency services is always going to be one of my first priorities. So huge thank you to Mauldin Police Department. My second thing is the fire department. I'm very excited to go to the opening on Friday and see the new headquarters. That being said, with this beautiful new building and all of this outlay for that, I am hoping I am praying that the budget included new mattresses for the beds for headquarters. I had the privilege, I guess, of passing money to purchase mattresses for the fire department while I was on council. And our poor fire department, fire members had been sleeping on those mattresses for 30 years. And since I've no longer been in that seat for 19, I'm thinking that those mattresses are somewhere in the realm of 20 to 22 years. And I'm sorry, they can't protect us if they're not getting a good night's sleep. The third issue is Fowler Circle. We have a city park on Fowler Circle. And a new development has been allowed to go in across from the park, which is going to increase the traffic on Fowler Circle by an additional probably 120 cars per day. That doesn't include the number of trips. Right now, we're getting a lot of cut-through traffic off of Ashmore Bridge coming through onto Fowler Circle. When they get to the stoplight, if they decide they don't want to wait, they cut through the pub parking lot. I have sat at that stoplight multiple times and watched near accidents on Mauldin Road because they've come shooting through the parking lot and shoot out and nearly hit a car that's traveling on Mauldin Road. The last time the police department did a traffic study out there, the average speed was 49 miles an hour. And it is a posted speed limit of 30. And that was about 7 years ago. I can tell you right now that a couple of years ago, there was an accident. A lady hit one of the tree cutting saw blades for Duke Power's tree cutters. When they came out and did the reconstruction, that woman was doing 65 miles an hour when she hit that saw blade. And she rolled 4 or 5 times. And she had, I mean, literally, she came around onto Fowler Circle, punched it, and hit that saw blade. She went around the man holding the stop sign because they were allowing the truck with the boom to come back out onto Fowler Circle, blew right by him, hit that saw blade. The young man who took out the guardrail in front of my place that's still not been replaced, he was doing probably close to 60 when he hit that guardrail. A gentleman died just past the park a couple of years ago, again, in excess of 60 miles an hour. We've got to do something. I stand on my porch, walking to and from my car, and my heart freezes many, many times a day as I watch people trying to walk with their children, walk with their dogs on the sidewalk to get to the park. Because the cars are speeding, they're passing each other. I watched somebody pass a school bus the other day. This is a huge, huge problem that has got to be addressed before someone else dies between Mauldin Road and the park. You know, I've been there for 10 years and I've seen a lot of things occur in that 10 years. I'd be happy to talk with any one of you about what I'm witnessing. I've got a couple of ideas that I don't know if DOT would allow something like what I'm thinking, but it would be a good reminder for people to slow down and it wouldn't hinder our emergency vehicles. Fourth thing is the stormwater. Sitting here listening to this, and sir, Bill, I am so sorry that the same issue that you came to us 25 years ago still hasn't been addressed. I mean, it's very, very disappointing and very disheartening that 20 years have gone by and that we're no further ahead than we were when I was here. And it was a huge problem then. Mr. Mayor, you actually came and helped me with a stormwater issue. It's helped. It certainly didn't fix it. You know, and I'm looking at minimum $50,000 repairing some damage to my property from stormwater. And that issue was done because of poor road design or engineering, period, engineering. And that is something that we need to be looking at more and more. This city is growing so fast. We're allowing all of this building to go in. We're annexing all of these people in. How are we holding the developers responsible? I can already tell you right now that new subdivision that's going in down the street from me. Yeah, they're going to put in the stuff that they need to for the 100-year flood, that kind of stuff. But there's still going to be runoff that is going to be negatively affecting the neighbors and negatively affecting the land around them. And then it's going to ultimately affect everybody on that side of Fowler Circle and down, downhill. Said Waterworms downhill. I think that the city does need a stormwater division. Now, whether that's 1 people, 2 people, or 20 people, I think that there needs to be very dedicated people addressing this. I know our public works department is stretched with all of this new annexation and all of the things, all of the requirements. Let's not burden them any further. Let's bring some people that are dedicated to this. And let's start making these developers pay more of a fee up front and not cause so much of a burden to the residents that are currently here in the form of that fee. Thank you.
Next item before us, 10 executive session on an economic development matter. Mr. Matt, would you like to take that?
If I could take one quick liberty beforehand, Mayor, with us going into executive session, I would have put this in at council concerns at the end, but I want to take a minute to recognize Travis from Greenville Connects. You know, this council recently made an investment in public transit to keep the bus route running in Mauldin and Simpsonville. And that's something that Greenville Connects is very passionate about, and the advocacy of public transit. So wanted to take a minute to introduce him. And if y'all get an opportunity to shake hands and introduce yourselves, please do. And with that, Mayor, move we enter executive session to consider an economic development matter related to City Center under 30-4-70A2.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Allgood? Reynolds, sorry. Discussion. All those in favor of adjourning to executive session? Moving into executive session, say aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Here none, we will consider ourselves to executive session and convene upstairs in the conference room at approximately 8:30.
Wasted out pretty well.
Oh, it comes and goes. No votes. Mr. Matt.
Mr. Mayor. I had the speaker muted, or the microphone muted. Could we have the report out again, once more? Thank you.
Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mayor. Coming out of executive session at 9:42, no decisions were made, no votes were taken. Was it as good the second time?
All right, hear that? Next before us is council concerns, any? Hearing and seeing none? Whoop. Oh, I know what you're going for. It's a pleasure. Council adjournment.
We adjourn.
Second.
Second from Mr. Reynolds, Ms. King. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're at 9:43.